So I'd love to know, location-wise, where this was shot, because I think it's beautifully shot in the location it's in. I'd love to know where you guys shot.
We shot in Virginia, Northern Virginia. My parents' home, actually. That's all woods around their house. And there's one, it's called the Northern Fauquier Community Park, I think. So that's some of the early stuff where you see like the, park benches and normal park stuff. But yeah, that's where we shot.
So do you come from a family of hunters and you wanted to make something fun? I mean, where did this come from?
I don't, actually. My dad's a police officer, but no hunting. Basically, the idea came from, I know I have their house that I can shoot at, and I know I have these woods. So what kind of story can I set there that would really take advantage of that? And so I came up with this hunting idea.
Very cool. Let's talk about casting, because these guys work so well off each other. Tell me a bit about the casting process and how that came about.
So I actually wrote the script with these actors in mind. I met them in film school. They were all at the theater school at Ohio University. And that's a really great theater school. They have a lot of great actors come out of it. And we had worked together on some short films there. And then, I wrote it with them in mind, and I said, hey, come out to the woods and let's play around. And they all said, sure.
How long did you shoot for?
It's 5.5 days.
Okay, wow. A little bit shorter than I thought, because it does have a lot of elements to it. Was that chaotic or was it easy? I mean, because it was that short.
We had all worked together before, so I think that made it less chaotic. But we were shooting 15 to 20 pages a day. But it is a mockumentary style. That helped because we could go very quickly. We didn't have to set up lights. It's all natural lighting. And we just planned ahead very well. It's a small crew. It's a small cast. So there weren't too many moving parts. And, of course, most of the locations are my parents' house, so I knew I had them for whenever, we needed to shoot there. So it went fairly smoothly. We were afraid about the weather, because that's one thing I hadn't thought of, because I had been shooting in California for too long, where it's like, oh, sure, we'll shoot whatever day because it's not a cloud in the sky. And then I came to Virginia and I was like, oh yeah, it rains here. There's a lot of thunderstorms. And somehow we got it in the window, and just as we were starting the last shot, it started to sprinkle. So we were like, all right, let's wrap it up, get this one, and we're done. So I think we lucked out a little bit.
Was there any improv? Because their speed, especially two guys, the speed of the dialogue seems like, I mean, they had it on point, but was there any improv in this at all?
Not really.
So that's total script then.
Yeah, it's pretty much all script. There might have been a couple little spots where you're like, oh, let's try something. But, I mean, in terms of the schedule, we didn't really have time to do a lot of improv. And they came and they were on point and they had that banter. So we just sort of went with what was scripted. Where
does your comedic sense of timing in that come from?
I watched a lot of Seinfeld as a kid. That was one of my favorite shows. And I've just always been a big fan of comedy. Edgar Wright is one of my favorite filmmakers. So I think a lot of my timing comes from watching like Hot Fuzz over and over again. Yeah.
Wow. Is this something, do you like the mockumentary style, or is it just, it was kind of fit the scope of it?
Well, it fit the scope of it, but I had wanted to do something in that style. I mean, I love The Office, Parks and Rec. What We Do in the Shadows, I think, is such a funny, great movie. So I wanted to try something in that style, and then it was like, oh, okay, if we do that style, we can shoot it quickly, so this will be a good fit.
Is there any thoughts of turning, because I could see this even as a TV show, like where you follow all the different characters of, Texas Wildlife Crew, or not Texas, but
right.
But I mean that's got to be fun to be able to create that element, that world. Is that something you're thinking of doing, or was it just a one-off?
Well, it was just a one-off. I hadn't had any thoughts beyond that. It was low budget and such a small crew, so I don't know that we have any more money or resources to sort of make it bigger, unless someone came in and was like, hey, here's a lot of money to do this. But I think it could be a very fun show. I mean, What We Do in the Shadows obviously spun off into, so. And
took them a couple of years.
Such a funny show. Yeah. So I think there's definitely potential with that idea, and I like the characters, or the types of characters. I don't know. I don't want to give too much away. But yeah, I think a show could be potentially very funny.
So you brought up Seinfeld. I've got to ask, do you have a favorite episode that you love?
Oh, man. I mean, they're all so great. The Soup Nazi is great. I mean, that's a classic answer. I love when they go to L.A. I think that's so funny. And, like, Kramer is accused of being a serial killer. That's got a ton of funny stuff. And I actually really like the Puerto Rican Day Parade one, which is, I think, the second to last one, because all of their alter egos collide in a really funny way. I don't know. They're also great. I
just had to ask. You said Seinfeld. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to know how you write. Like, are you a morning writer? Do you write at night? Because your writing is very witty, very connecting. You flow really nicely. I mean, you can tell the way these guys are going off of each other that it's like that. It's the beat.
I'm a night person.
Okay.
Definitely. I wish I was a morning person, but I'm just not. So it's usually like 2 o'clock in the morning that it's like, oh, now it's really flowing. And yeah, I usually try and outline vaguely and then just sort of do a vomit draft, and then get back in there and try and tighten things up. But yeah, definitely a night owl. So
I'd love to know, how many more projects do you have in the ready to go, or was this kind of the first one that came to fruition? I mean, do you have many more ideas down the loop?
I have tons of ideas. This is sort of my second bigger project, I guess. I did a web series before that I wrote and directed. And so then this was my first feature. I've got another script that I feel like is almost ready. It's a zombie romantic comedy. And then,
How Edgar Wright of you.
Yes. Well, I said, hey, he did one. I'm going to do my version of one. Yeah, I should just do my version of all of his films. But yeah, so there's that one. And then, I have other ideas that are in various drafts. But there's plenty of content if people want to give me money to make it. I'm happy to go for years.
I'd love to know what it means to you to be at a festival like Women Texas that's honoring the radical storyteller of women creators, not just directors and writers, but that you guys can do anything and everything on the equal basis. I mean, hopefully in the future we don't have to have women festivals.
Sure.
But what does it mean right now to know that there is a festival out there that caters to a very under-catered to profession out there?
I mean, it's amazing. It's so hard to find your audience these days because there's so much content. So if you can find the right festival, I feel like your film can get the right audience. And this feels like, the right audience for this film. So, I think it's great that we have the opportunity then to meet all these other filmmakers who are also radicals. I don't know, I never considered myself a radical really, but it's very cool to be included.
Have you become more interested in hunting or guns because of the film?
No. I mean, guns, like I've shot guns, it's fun to shoot them, but I never really had the desire to hunt. I would be way too squeamish. I mean, I have problems like squishing a spider, so hunting is probably not up my alley. But I was thinking of, actually, there's this, I don't know if you read the Sandman comics by Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So there's like I don't want to give too much away again, but there's a little section in there about a convention of, yes, so that's sort of where the idea was born. And then I said, all right, well, what can they be doing? Hunting, of course. And we got these
I never
woods.
would have guessed that. I mean, now it fits perfect, and now I see it. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so are you a comic fan or just a Neil Gaiman fan?
Mostly a Neil Gaiman fan. I just find it very difficult to keep up with the comics, and all the continuity things kind of mess with me a little bit. So I'm always just like, but that doesn't fit with what happened before. So it's mostly sort of Neil Gaiman stuff. And obviously, I mean, I love comic movies, and the continuity in those is not quite as troubling yet.
And I'd love to know, I know this isn't your typical Southern audience here at Women Texas, but bring it to a Southern audience, an audience that may have a very different perspective of hunting and the glorification of hunting, or that, element. Is it fun for you to be able to know that you'll be able to sit back and see maybe a different reaction?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very curious to see. I mean, it's so far, it's gotten a good reaction. People have laughed in the right places, and hopefully, I mean, I'm not trying to like make fun of hunters. I just think it's a fun fit for this film to have them be hunters. So yeah, I'm curious to see if there's anyone in the audience who's like an avid hunter, what they think of it.
Well, Amy, I giggled, I hope, in all the right places when I saw it. I laughed a lot.
I'm sure you did.
And thank you for bringing it here. I know it was something that when I saw it, I was like, ooh, this might fit kind of nicely here. So thank you for coming out.
Oh, well, thanks for talking to me.